Hello, everybody. Welcome to IST 140. I'm, of course, Professor S. This is today's lecture. Let's get into it. Anyways, what we're doing today is we're talking about strings and the printf function. So we have a few methods that are kind of tied to the strings, and we'll kind of get to know those a little better as we go along. You'll see it in the walkthrough. And then we'll also use this new method, printf. We've used print, we've used println. We got a new one, printf. And you'll see that in just a second. But before we go, some important vocabulary. We have string and concatenation. So a string is, a substring. So a substring is a part of a string that's like a new string that's formed when we just take characters from an old string and make it into a new string. Okay? So like, for instance, string is technically a substring of substring. Because the idea is like if you look here, we have string, string. Those are all characters if this was a string. And so this would form a substring of the word substring. Okay. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Concatenation is kind of the reverse and we talked about concatenation before. That's where you take multiple strings and where they combine forces and become a single string. Okay. All right. Anyways, let's go into the walkthrough and see these sort of things in action. All right. So here I am in Canvas. I'm going to notice that this says copy and paste the code into the main method. So we have to have a main method to put this in. But first, I'm going to just copy this and put it in. Well, just copy it for now. Then I'm going to open up IntelliJ. I want to start a new project for this week. Call this week 3. Let's see, sample codes. Okay, so I don't want to do that. Create. And then I have my new thing right here. Let me make this big enough. Right here. We want to make new Java class. I want to call this, I want to close that bothered me. All right, new Java class. I'm going to call this walkthrough 3.1. Yeah. All right. And so now I have my new public class. And I know this is a little small, so let me make this bigger. All right. You don't need that window that big. All right. So as it said before, I need to put this in my main method. So I need to make a main method. Public static void main string args. And then boom. And so then now I have a main method and I paste. And just a refresher, remember this is our class. This is the program and it's also the file name. The file name is called wt3-1.java and it's for our public class. This is our program. All right. Anyways, so first we're going to start talking about scanner. I got to adjust my monitor that you can't see. All right. Anyways, scanner with string. So we need a method that will finds the spaces so we can read more than just the words. All right. Anyways, so first of all, we're going to use a scanner thing. So in order to use scanner, we have to import it. So here I'm going to put it in next line and do import java.util.scanner. Now it's important that scanner is capitalized and everything looks good right there. All right. Anyway, so we're importing the scanner when we run it. Great. Now what we need to do is create the new object scanner. I'm going to call this, I don't know, scanner. How about SC? So we say new scanner, and then we say system.in. Wonderful. So this creates our scanner object, and our scanner object this time is called SC. Sometimes I've called it new, sometimes I call it SCNR. This time I decided to call it SC because that's what I felt like doing. Anyways, next thing is let's prompt the user for a string. So it's like So we ask the user for a string, and then we'll say, we'll store their answer as something. We kind of talked about this before, where it is, we'll call this user input. And so what we have to do is we have to use our scanner object, sc, and then we're going to do next. That's like what we talked about before. So that reads, so remember when it was next int, next double, those read ints and doubles respectively. In order to read a string, it's just next, right? And so then we'll just print what the user told us. System out print the user inputted, and then we'll concatenate what the user put in. User input. And it'll be on that all that same line. All right, so anyway, so when we run this, thinks about it for a second. All right, it says enter a string. So I'm gonna say hello, and then it says the user inputted hello. I did. Nice, huh? But look what happens when I do this. So I'm gonna run this again, and I'm gonna say hello world. I put in hello world, but it just read hello. See, the thing is like this next only does a string up until a white space, in this case, the space bar. We need a scanner method, because that's what the method is the next, that's the method. We need a scanner method that can read a string with spaces in it. So instead of next, we're just going to do next line and give that a try. All right, so we were saying hello world. And look at that. It ran it captured the whole thing, right? Now it's going to go up until an enter, but now we have that. Next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to put this as I'm going to comment that out. All right, so now what we're going to do is methods tied to the string. So we're going to be done for the scanner for the moment. We'll be doing scanner for the rest of the semester, but I mean, just as far as this is concerned, we're done with it. All right, so we have this string that's called bunch of words, and we want to print the amount of characters that are in the string. Okay, so what we would do is we could do system out print ln, and so we have bunch of words. Bunch words, and what I want to do is find the amount of that. And so the way that we do this, so this is an object that we created from the string, and we'll kind of get into objects and classes in just a second, but there's a method that's tied to it, and that is length, and that's what we want to use for this one, length, right here. Notice there's nothing in it. It's kind of like how we had the next line. See, these things are, these are examples of objects with the methods that they can use. So the object here is the scanner object, and the method is next line. So that's something that's from the scanner class. Likewise, we have our object here is bunch words. It's from a string. And so the method is length. And so it's length that's tied to this string class, specifically this object here. And so when I complete the line there, I run it, and it says 25. And if you notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Right? So it includes spaces. It also takes weird characters too. But that's the length. That's how you find it. So it's the string that you're referring to, dot length with parentheses. Don't put anything inside the parentheses. Anyways, here we're going to move on to this next thing here. All right. So store the following values. We're actually going to ignore this one here, even though this is supposed to be third. There we go. All right. So first of all, notice these are red. That's because we're declaring these, we're assigning values to these and they haven't been declared. So we have to declare them string and string. All right. So anyway, so we have string, first one, bunch words, substring. So we're finding substrings for both of these. So it's both of these are the same method, but notice this one has 2 to 4 and this one's just 2. The IDE adds this beginning index. So anyways, let's run this. And so then it looks like it says the first one is, and then it says whatever first one is, and this one says the second one is second one. So it's finding a substring from bunch words for both of them. Let's see what they both come up with. All right, so we run it. And so it says the first one is RE, and then the next one says RE are a bunch of words. So let's look at the first one. And if you notice, it says 2 to 4. So the idea is like what these values are in reference to the index, the different locations within the string itself. Now, as far as index values go, Java starts at 0 and works its way up. So if we think about this string, which is we said before is 25 characters, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 24 because there's 25 characters, right? So if we're going from 2 to 4, notice that is 2 here, 3, 4. So space would be here. But if you look, I'm going to change this from 4 to 6. Okay, watch what happens. All right, so it says the first one is RE space A. All right, so if we look at this, here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 would be R in this case, but notice that it ended here on A. So the way that these substrings work is that it tells it the substring begins on the index value that it was given, so in this case 2, and it ends right before the one that the second one. So notice that it shows the substring is from locations 2, 3, 4, 5. It stops before it gets 6. It doesn't include 6. Okay. Now, the other one starts at 2, but notice it ends at S. So we have the S here. So the idea is if we want just from starting point onward, we just use one number, and that's where we want it to begin because it just ends wherever it ends. But if we wanted to end at a specific before that, we put a second number in. Okay, and that second number will be the one before it. All right. Anyways, the next thing is third one. Oh crap. There you go, and I'll put string here. But notice it doesn't like that. The idea is like this is a new data type. It's called a character. And we represent this primitive with char. Okay. And so what this does is notice it's referring to our string object, and it has the method char at 2 or character at 2. So notice if it's character at and then it says 2, it's looking for the character at that specific index location. So notice it says 2, and remember 2 is the R. So 0, 1, 2, it's this R right here, right? So that's why it's doing R. If we would put, change it to 3, it should be E, right? And what do you know? There it is, right? Cool, huh? All right. The last thing I want to do, I'll just leave that up, is talk about printf. So this is a new print function. And so before we get into printf, let's kind of do some calculation stuff here. So first of all, item name. The idea is like we're trying to find, we know the item's price, we know the tax rate, and we know the tip rate. So tax rate is 6.5%. The tip rate is 20% or 1/5. And so we need to apply that to each one of those, the price. And we don't apply the tip to the tax rate, and we don't tax the tip rate. We do those individually, and then we add it all up. So First thing is, let's come up with a name of something. And then what we're ultimately coming up with is we want to know the name of something, and then we want to print how much the total is. And that includes the tip and tax. All right, so anyways, we're going to call it the same thing I called it in Clatch, which was a donut. Cute. And then the tip. So remember, tip is found by the percent times, or the rate times the value. So it's, in this case, price times the tip rate, semicolon. Right? And remember, when we're doing the when we have these operators, there's a space in between our variables. That way it makes it easier to read. Otherwise, when we're glancing through, it kind of looks like one variable, since a variable is made up of multiple letters or multiple characters. So it's kind of, so we do that space in between the operator for our arithmetic. Then we do tax, which is, once again, price times the tax rate. There we go, semicolon. So that finds the tax amount. And then what we do is we need to find the total, which is the price plus the tip plus the tax. And that gives us our net amount, right? Semicolon. Now, what we want to do is we want to print it so that it's on the same line that says, here's the item and here's the total. So then what we would say is, so far, let's do print ln, system out print ln, and we say the whatever, you got to say what the thing is, and notice I have to put a space in here to account for it. The item name is, wait, no, the item name, the thing is this, the donut, and then we want to say is, and then we want to say the price. Oh, but you know what? I want to have the $sign in here. And then I also want to finish with a period. Let's take a look at what this looks like. All right, so we have those things from before, but here's the thing. And so it says the donatus, $sign 2356. All right, so that must be the price. But it's kind of weird that it's donatus. Notice I have the item name, and then I'm concatenating with this string here, but it's just, there's no space for the is. So it's just attaching that onto that thing. So we have to make sure we add that space. Okay. And then when we run it, there we go. The donut is $23.56. Great. All right. That's interesting. I keep getting a different amount for these every time. Every time that I run this, it gives me different values, because like before, it was not rounding these at all. Huh. Tip rate is 0.2. Tax rate. Huh. Oh, you know what? It's because I used price when I was supposed to use total. There we go. Now look at this. There you go. Now it's 29.8034. That would make sense why it wasn't the same. But also notice that, like, there was one time when I ran this class, and it had other numbers after it. There's a reason for this, and I don't want to get into this video. We want to try to use, I try to use ints as much as I can, because the decimal place, with floating point numbers, Java can get a little bit weird with those as we go along. Maybe I'll demonstrate that later. But the idea is like, the most important thing is that it is kind of a weird price, right? So we have 29.803 3.4, right? It usually should be just 80 cents, right? Because there's no, this doesn't make sense, right? I don't need a laugh track for that. You're laughing. Anyways, let's get let me just show you what the printf does so you can kind of see it firsthand. So we have system out printf. And so what we're going to say is the same thing. So we're going to say and then what we want to do is have the item name. And so anytime we're inserting a variable into our into our string, we do the percent to signify the placeholder for a variable. This case, we want the string. We'll get into what that is in just a second. So we'll do an S for string. And then we continue on is, and then $, and then we want another placeholder, and that's for the total. And this is a floating point number. We'll kind of talk about like the different letters that we use for these in the slides in a little bit, but just bear with me. And then finish off with a period. And then all we have to do now is put in the variables that we want to use. So first of all, we used a string, so that means we want to do the item name, and then we have the floating point number, which is our total. We got to just make sure we end with a semicolon. Okay, so now notice that when we run this, it is practically the same, but it added some weird zeros onto it. And it still has that 3.4. Now, what I want to do is, like I said, that 3 and the 4 and the anything after that doesn't make sense because cents stops at hundredths and these are thousands and then 10,000s and so on. So what we can do with this thing is right before in this percent thing, after the percent, before the F, if we do .2, watch what happens. I'm going to run it. Look at that. It rounds it so that it is 29.8, or does it drop it? Like before, we were looking at the casting, and remember, it's hard to tell when it's rounding because if we're rounding or dropping, it would be doing the exact same thing. The way that we would know for sure is if we change the total so that it's 0.805 something, right? So then that way it would round up if it rounds, or just drop it if it just dropped it, right? So it'd be 29.80 if it just dropped it, or it'd be 29.81 if it rounded. So let's check that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this line here, I'm going to take total, and I'm going to add to total 0.005. And so remember, this is from the video from before. It adds this value to total and stores it as total. And so note what we should see is that it say the donut is 29.80. Oh, no, I don't want to do 5. I want it to be 5. So I'm going to add 2. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So it's going to be 29.8054. And then here on this next line, we'll either see that it's 29.81 or 29.80. And so then from there, we can see if it's rounding or if it's dropping. So we do the play, and look at that. It's 29.81. So that means this rounds it. It doesn't drop it. It's good to know, right? All right. Anyways, let's kind of reflect on these things that we just learned and we saw in this walkthrough and see them in these slides. So objects and classes, we kind of were talking about those before. A class is a program-defined data type that specifies the behavior of its instances. That's its formal definition. An object is a value of a class type. Okay, these are formal things. Let's kind of think about these in ways that kind of affect us, because we're not actually going to be creating classes in this class in IST 140, but we will be creating objects. So let's first think about what an object is. An object contains data and provides methods to interact with it. Okay, a class, in a class, it's something that's been created, but it's something that defines the methods and manages how the data is used, right? And so later you can create, I mean, like if you think about it, we're creating programs, that's its own public class. You could probably look ahead if, well, later, I mean, it's not probably ready for it yet, but the idea is like you can create these. It's something that somebody can do. I wouldn't recommend this yet if you're brand new to Java. But the idea is like we create objects all the time. We've been any string or scanner thing that we've created, those are all objects. So let's kind of talk about those a little further. So scanner and string are both classes. Looking at the scanner, when we created a scanner, notice that it was scanner in equals new scanner system in, and that system should be capitalized, right? But that in this case is an object, right? And so when we use the methods, it was tied to that object, right? And so it did the methods. Remember, methods, functions, they do stuff, and it's stuff that's tied to that object. And it's kind of confusing at first because we're only using scanner once, and it's for reading from the command line. We don't need to create a new scanner every time we want to read the command line for a program. We just, like, every time we want to read, we use that object. So we have in.nextInt, in.nextDouble. Those are different ways that we can use that scanner object for reading the int or double, respectively. For the string class, all we have to do is we do string word equals, and then we just assign the string literal to it, right? But we still have methods that are from it because string is a class. And so we have our object, in this case, word, and then we have the method that's tied to it. So when we do word.length, we're finding the length of that specific string object. That's why if we had word 1 that said something and word 2 said something else, they would get it. We'd have word 1.length would give us a different value than word 2.length because those are different string lengths, right? One says something and one says something else. It's so the length would be the counting the amount of characters, and we did that before. Remember bunch words? That length was 25 because there was 25 characters. Okay. So kind of thinking about it further, when we have the index values, so nerd stuff is what we're going to be assigning to words in this example of the slides. So remember, we start with 0 and work our way, including every single character in our string. Now we had these different things. So like, for example, we have character, letter, words at character 3. And if you notice that at 3, that's D, and that's why we have the D. Now, I don't think I said this in the walkthrough, but when we're talking about characters, so with strings, we use double quotes. When we're using when we're referring to the literal's characters, we use a single quote. Okay, so that's why D is in single quotes. For substring 5 to 9, it would be stuff. Right? Because remember, we start at 5 and end at 1 before our whatever character we're finishing on. So 5 to 9 would be here. If we wanted to include S, T, U, F, and F, we'd have to do the next one. And so we could do 5, 10 instead of 9, and it would be stuff. Another thing that we could do is just do just the 5 on its own, and it would do everything to the end. Okay, and so that'd give us our second F. Okay. Speaking of F, let's talk now about the printf syntax. So here I have an example of printf being used. So say some stuff and print a number here. And so notice that we have, we're saying we want a floating point number right there. And it has a 5 there, which we didn't discuss, but we had a 0.2 and then an F. So remember, F was for the floating point number. I guess that's what price is. It's a double. And then 0.2 would round it to 2 decimal places. Well, okay, anyways, let's kind of dissect it a little further. So first of all, like I said before, the %, that's what we indicate that it's a placeholder for a variable. Okay. And then the next number, that is the amount of spaces that it takes up. Okay, so that's the overall amount of spaces. So if we have a 2-digit number, you're going to have spaces to the left of it. Okay, so 3 spaces and then 2 characters to take up that 5 spaces. And then also we have this 0.2, and what that does is round. If it's a floating point number, like a double, then it would round that many decimal places. If it's a string, it shortens it. Okay. And then next we have in this case, f. That is for the variable type. Now notice we're not using double or int or that. We're kind of being a little bit more generic than that. So we're saying if we want an int, we use d. I guess that would also work for a long. For string, we have an s, lowercase s, and for a floating point number, in this case a double, it would be f as well, right? So we could use a float, a data point, but also, or data type, but also double. And then also notice that we have price here, and that's because variables are in the order that they're used. There's just one here, and that's price. Notice in the one that we did walkthrough, we had 2 variables. We had the unit name, and then we had total, and it was in the order that they appeared in the string for printf. Okay. Anyways, play around with what we did and what we talked about. This is stuff that is in Zybooks and should be in the reading on Canvas. Hopefully this helps make sense of it. Anyways, hopefully you found this useful. Talk more about this next class. I'll see you all later. Bye. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please press the like button below. It lets me know I'm doing something right. If you have any questions about any of the content, please send a message to both me and the rest of the teaching team in Canvas, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Don't send it through normal email. You will not get as fast response. If you have any suggestions for how I can make these videos better, please leave in the comments below. Don't forget to roundhouse kick the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified for the next video. Anyways, I think that's good for now. See y'all later. Bye.